Today, we're checking out the entry-level Sennheiser XSW in-ear monitor system. This is a stereo in-ear monitor system and is a great option for an entry-level in-ear monitor system. I used this at 7 different shows and rehearsals over the last couple of months, and I'm going to share my experience with you. If you're in the market for a good entry-level wireless in-ear monitor system, this is a good place to start. And I will also show you how there's a feature in this where you can have one of the transmitters send 2 separate signals to 2 separate receivers, so 2 different musicians can have 2 separate mixes. Great way to save on money and save on stage space. I do want to say many thanks to Sweetwater for sending this over for me to check out for the channel and for sponsoring the video. However, just as always, all the opinions in this video are my own. And if you do decide that this system is right for you, there are purchase links to purchase from Sweetwater down below in the description. Really quick, if you're brand new to in-ear monitors, this is not the video to start at. I do have a beginner's guide to in-ear monitors. I highly recommend you check that video out and start there. And if you are interested in how to set up an in-ear monitor rack and stuff like that, I do have a whole guide going over that as well. This video, I'm going to focus more on just the review of the product. That's enough of the intro. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and let's go ahead and get started. So in the box, you get quite a few things. First of all, here is the transmitter itself. Here is the body pack receiver that lives on you. Here's the antenna. This screws in here on the back, although you can rack mount it to the front, which I'll go over here in a second. You have the power supply. It does include 2 AA batteries, which is always nice. Drives me nuts when companies don't include batteries, but that goes into the body pack receiver. You also do get a set of in-ear monitor earbuds. These are decent. I've worn these before. They are worth upgrading, just my 2 cents, but it does give you some in-ear monitors to get started, which is nice. And you also do have a bunch of gear for setting it up in a rack mount. So if you want to bring the antennas to the front, which you do want to do if you're putting it in a rack mount, do not put the antenna buried in the back of the rack. The only thing that bugs me is that they do not give you the BNC cable that you need in order to bring the antenna to the front. You'll need to buy something separately for that. That's always a pet peeve of mine that so many companies just leave that out. They give you the rack mount kit, but they don't give you the cable to bring it to the front. Not the end of the world, just a small pet peeve of mine. So starting with the transmitter itself, here on the back you have 2 separate ports. It's very nice that it's both 1/4 inch as well as XLR. That's always very convenient. If you plan to just use this in mono, just plug into the left input. And if you do want to use stereo, you're going to want to plug into both. I'll show you a trick with this here in a little bit. You also do have a headphone output here if you need to monitor this directly, and you have a volume knob for that right here. That only affects the headphone port. So you have 4 different buttons over here. You can see that when I push the down and up arrows, we scroll between audio, preset, and tune. Those are your 3 main menus that you have. And if you want to edit something in there, so let me go to audio and then push set. And you can see that right now it is blinking where it says mono. So if I want to set that to stereo, I can move up or down to change it between mono and stereo. Push set again to get to the next option, which is gain. This is important to know what to do. If you're clipping, be sure to turn down the gain. If the signal's too quiet, bump the gain. I found around -15 has worked for me, but it's different with everybody. Make sure you know how to set your gain. That's it for audio. Next up, go into preset, hit set. And you can change the bank and the channel. See right now I'm on bank 4, channel 9. But if I start scrolling through, and you can see the frequency that I'm transmitting on is changing. If you're not familiar with how to use banks, also known as groups and channels, I do have a video going over that. I do recommend watching that video after you finish this video if you're not familiar with how to use banks and channels. But let's say I want to go to bank 8 and then hit set, go to channel, and I'm going to change that. So let's set that to channel 12. And that's it for preset. Going down one more, I have tune. And this one, I can set the frequency that I want to transmit the signal on manually if I want to. So I can go through here and make changes. So if I wanted to manually set this to 497.555 megahertz, for example, I can do that. But I'm going to go back to the preset. I'm going to set it to bank 8, channel 12. And that's basically it on the transmitter. They kept it very simple, gave you everything that you needed. Here on the receiver, this is pretty simple. Put in a few AA batteries, which again are included. And same idea, hit set to scroll through different options and then up and down to change them. So I can set the bank here as well as the channel. You want to make sure obviously that the transmitter and the receiver are set to the same group and channel. You might see that there's bars showing up here in the RF and the AF ports. I'll address that here in a minute. Push set again. You can set a limiter on or off. I generally like to have a limiter on for my in-ear monitors. Push set again. You have EQ on or off. On will turn on a high boost. I personally like that off. And then next up, you have focus on or off. And I'm going to go over what that means when I go over the mono versus stereo section a little bit later. But just know that's how you access it. Push it again and you can adjust the panning. And this also comes into play for when you go over that one transmitter to receiver trick. So I can pan it all the way to the left or all the way to the right, or I can leave it centered. I can push set again, and I can manually set the frequency as well. You do also get a battery meter up here in the upper right, which is also very handy. They kept it very simple and straightforward, which I like. Okay, so for scanning and syncing, so this actually does not have a scan feature in here. And I've addressed this before, but the thing is they actually have a smart way to do this. And I do this with my higher end systems as well. And they actually have this printed on the box too. So the way you want to find out if you have a clear channel is you want to make sure that your transmitter is off. You want to have it powered off, and then you want to turn on the belt pack. And when you turn it on, if you are seeing these bars here, the RF bar means that it is receiving some sort of wireless RF signal on that channel. The AF is just the audio, which is very likely just static and noise that the system is picking up somewhere. So that means that this frequency is already being used by something else, or it's getting interference somehow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it, I'm going to hit set, and I'm going to start changing until I find a clear channel. So there we go. So bank 2 channel 1, everything is gone. The RF and the AF meter are gone. You want to check the RF meter to make sure you're not getting anything on that channel. So let's scroll through just to see some of the other channels. So going up here to bank 2 channel 7, you can now see that I'm getting an RF signal, which means that this frequency and this channel is already being used, or it's getting interference from something else. So I do not want to use this channel. But going up to bank 2 channel 8, that's clear. So that is also an option. But I'm going to set this back to group 2 channel 2. That was the first clear channel that I found. So let's just go back to that one. And now on my transmitter, I'm going to turn it on. I want to make sure I'm in preset. Hit set. And I'm going to set it manually to bank 2 channel 2. So I found a clear channel on my receiver, and I'm going to set that up on the transmitter. And now you can see that I'm getting a clear RF signal. You can see that the bars are full, which means that the connection is very stable. And you can also see there's this green light up on top when it has established a clear connection. Now you do want to see the RF bars. If your transmitter is on and you're set to the same channel, you do want to see the RF bars because that will mean you have a strong signal strength. If your transmitter is off and you are seeing the RF bars, that means that that channel is already being used or getting interference from somewhere else. So that is how you find a clear channel and set it appropriately. So I do actually own the higher-end Sennheiser EW IEM system. That's their higher-end, more expensive model. And this is actually the way that I do this when I show up at a show with that system as well. I turn on my receiver, I make sure that the transmitter is off, and if I'm not seeing any of the bars in the RF signal, that means that that channel is clear, and I know that I can use it. So it works great. And again, I'm mentioning this because in the past, in some of my videos, I said that I wish that this system had an option to scan. However, especially at this price point, and especially with this workaround, I don't actually think it's that necessary. So I think it's okay that it doesn't have a scan feature, and I've been using this way over the last couple of months. However, I do think that they screwed up the sync feature. So you can see it has a sync button right here, but watch what happens. My transmitter is currently set to bank 8 channel 12, but I want to send the channel that I found on my receiver to the transmitter. When I hit sync and then put this in front of it and it syncs over infrared, it sends that channel from the transmitter to the body pack, not the body pack to the transmitter. That doesn't really make sense because I found the channel on the body pack and I'm trying to send that to the transmitter. Kind of goofy that they did it this way. So I know why they did this, at least I think I know why they did this, but most in-ear monitor systems, you have them in a rack and then you usually have like an antenna combiner and then you can use it with software to scan for the best channel and coordinate all of your frequencies and stuff like that. And then you send all of that information to the transmitter and then you sync your body pack to that. The thing is with this system, it doesn't even have an Ethernet port. I think the majority of people for this entry-level one are going to set it on the body pack. So it should have been sync from whatever you've set your body pack to and send that over to the transmitter. Just kind of a silly mistake, I think. But the features are great in here. I like that all of it is pretty common knowledge. Most people know what panning is or a limiter is, but I think the only one that was kind of something that you would have to look up in the manual was focus. Like, what does that mean, focus? And that's actually what I'm going to go over next, because focus is going to be what you're going to use to either get a stereo signal or a mono signal. And using the mono signal, you can actually do that trick that I was talking about at the beginning, where you have one transmitter sending 2 separate mono mixes to 2 separate musicians with 2 separate body packs. It's a really smart option. I use this all the time, actually, and here's how you set that up. So I only have one pack, but pretend that I have two, and we're going to send two separate individual mixes to two separate musicians. So first off in the back, the first musician is going to get their signal into the left input. That's going to be with this black XLR cable. And then the second musician is going to plug their in-ear monitor feed into the right input. And that's going to be represented with this green cable right here. Musician 1 to the left, musician 2 to the right. So now what you're going to do is on the transmitter, you're going to go to your audio, and you just want to make sure that you're set to stereo. So go to the audio and set it to stereo. Now on Musician 1's pack, what you want to do is you want to hit set until you get over to that focus mode, and you're going to make sure that focus is set to on. If you just want to have a stereo in your monitor mix, you're going to want to set that to off. But using this one transmitter to receiver method, you want to set focus to on. So once focus is set to on, now you want to go to the panning, and this is Musician 1 who is plugged into the left input. So you're going to pan this all the way to the left. So you're going to set it down to L9. That's panned all the way to the left. Now for Musician 2, for their body pack, they're going to do the same thing, turn focus on, but this time you're going to set the panning all the way to the right, and you're going to set that to R9. So Musician 1 is only going to hear what is plugged in to the left input, and Musician 2 is only going to hear what is plugged into the right input. And yes, you will hear sound in both ears. That's a very common question. Yes, you will hear audio in both ears, and that's the way you want to set it up. And just to show you that it is working, so I've plugged in just some music going into just the left input right here in the back. And you can see on the front, you can see that the left is only getting the audio signal. Right now, it's only going into the left. If I unplug it and put it into the right input, you can see that only the right input is getting signal. It's actually a little quiet, so I'm actually going to up the gain a little bit. Remember to set your gain properly. I'm going to set it back to the left input. If I'm set to the same bank and channel or the same frequency, you can see right now I'm set to R9, which means I'm panned all the way to the right, and I'm getting nothing in the AF meter. That's my audio meter. But as soon as I start panning it all the way over to the left, now you can see that I am getting signal. So again, Musician 1 is only going to hear what is plugged into the left input, and then Musician 2 is only going to hear what is plugged into the right input. So if you absolutely must have stereo, then yes, you're going to need one transmitter and one receiver for each musician who needs a stereo mix. It's up to you to make that decision of which one you need. However, if you are looking on saving money and rack space, this is definitely a great option. As far as price, as of the time of shooting, this is currently listed at $599. There is also an option if you want to do the one transmitter to two body pack receivers, and that is currently listed at $948. Again, a great way to save on money. Instead of having to get two transmitters and receivers, this is a bit cheaper. And you can find purchase links to purchase from Sweetwater down below in the description. If you do plan to use this with a rack mount kit, I will also link to the $30 cable that you need in order to bring that to the front of the rack. Purchase links to purchase from Sweetwater will be available down below in the description or using the QR code on your screen now. All right, so my experience with these. So I use these at 7 different rehearsals and shows over the last couple of months, and I'm going to go over my experience with you. Just FYI, if you are finding this video helpful, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. It truly does help out the channel, and I would appreciate it. And consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this in the future. The first show that I brought this to, well, it wasn't a show, it was a rehearsal actually. And this is the thing, wireless frequencies, it depends on where you are, which ones are going to work and which ones are not. At this rehearsal space, this was the one where I had the most problems with this system. However, spoiler alert, all the other spots that I played, I didn't have any problems with this system. So I'm going to come back to that first one. I then took it to another band that I play with. We had another rehearsal, and I put it on top of our in-ear monitor rack that we have, or just like everything rack, because I really wanted to push this thing to its limits. One of the things you want to do, especially with entry-level stuff, is that you want to space out the wireless, or you want to use an antenna combiner. You don't want to have 4 or more antennas all in a rack, all in close quarters. It worked great for rehearsal though. I did get like 1 or 2 dropouts, but again, I was pushing this to its limits. You're not supposed to have a bunch of antennas all around each other. So that was a good sign. Next time I used it, I brought it to a show. My 90s band did a show. We have a lot of wireless in that band, and I moved my in-ear monitor system away from basically everyone's in-ear monitors and wireless systems. And at that show, it worked flawless. I didn't have any issues all night. I even did a test to test the range where the stage was and to the bathroom. I actually got a little bit of footage of this, but I walked over there and I didn't lose any signal. One of the best ways to use wireless is line of sight from the transmitter to the receiver. So that was a bunch of bodies in the way, and it still worked really well. Then I went back to that that first band, that rehearsal space. In that space, we had a ton of different wireless stuff going. That was my first time playing with that band. And the drummer actually had a really cool setup at that practice space. He had a wireless mic for everyone so we could talk to each other, so we don't have to do the what'd you say, take out the in-ears to talk to each other. But there was a lot of wireless going on in there. Plus, it's also like a music studio. He does a bunch of recording and stuff like there. That was the most challenging RF environment. And that's part of the thing with this one is I was able to kind of set a signal that I thought was clear. But it was interesting as I like moved towards the wall, I would start to get interference. There's something going on in that room or with the lights or something. I'm very curious what that was causing a little bit of interference. I got through the rehearsal. It was fine, but that was definitely the one where I'd get most issues with that system. Then the next day, we played the show that we were rehearsing for, and it worked fantastic. There was a bunch of wireless on stage, 2 wireless guitars, a wireless acoustic, wireless bass, 2 wireless vocals, 5 wireless in-ear monitors. That's a lot of wireless all on the stage. And I made sure to move this off to the side and left it away from all the other wireless. Again, don't put all your antennas right by each other. I think it cut out once in the entire show. So it worked really well. I then brought it to a duo with my wife, which I was really excited to try it out because I was like, okay, I'm not doing this with bands with a ton of wireless now. This is something that I preach a lot on my channel. Entry-level stuff, you don't want to use a ton of it all at once. If you have a ton of wireless all at once, you need to buy the higher end stuff. So I was excited that I could do this with my duo. We each had wireless for our vocals, for our guitars, and for our in-ear monitors. I used this one, worked flawlessly all night, no problems. I then did a solo set also that's even less wireless, and sure enough, this worked flawlessly all night. So this is something I have to stress is that every wireless system has a certain range or bandwidth of frequencies that the wireless can work in. The wireless frequency is just how the transmitter and the receiver communicate to each other without a cable. So if you have this many wireless frequencies to choose from, and you go to a venue that this area is crowded for whatever reason, that means you're going to have problems, or you're likely not going to be able to use your wireless, or you'll get more dropouts. I stress that a lot, but I'll still get comments and messages saying, hey, I thought you recommended this in-ear monitor system. You said it worked well for you, but I brought it to a show and it didn't work. Well, the venues that I'm playing at are different. It always depends on the area that you're playing. The more frequencies that you have, the better. This one happens to have 24 megahertz of tuning bandwidth. That is a good amount for an entry-level system. Again, I've reviewed some that have like 10 channels. That's just 10 channels, not even 24 megahertz to find a clear channel on, just like A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So this is a good system, but I'm just letting you know you get more with the higher end stuff. So if you've seen my wireless buying guide, I stress this a lot, but the higher end wireless that you get, the more frequencies that you're going to have. This one has 24 megahertz of tuning bandwidth. That's just a fancy way of saying the width of frequencies that you have to find a clear signal. If you go up to the Sennheiser EW IEM system, that is their higher end in-ear monitor system that Sennheiser makes, that one has about 46 megahertz of tuning bandwidth, almost double. So you have way more options with that. However, it's also like $450 more. So it's up to you to make that decision. How many wireless are you going to be using at once? How much are you traveling and touring and stuff like that? If you just play, on weekends at local places around town and stuff like that, this one is definitely meant for you. If you're touring, I do recommend to go up with a higher end model. So I have reviewed the EW IEM system as well from Sennheiser, and I have a whole video going over that. You do get a lot more features with it. Just briefly, I'll just say you get the ability to scan, which is definitely nice. You get almost double the number of frequencies that you can find a clear signal on, which is very helpful. You do have an Ethernet RJ45 port. That way you can connect it with software in your computer for more advanced scanning. And you also get a feature called Squelch, which is a very helpful feature. It's basically a noise gate for the RF wireless signal. It's actually a really helpful feature that not a lot of people know how to use, and I have a video going over that, so it's definitely worth checking out. Those features are awesome, of course. However, do you have the budget, and do you need that? Are you going to spend $450 more in order to get that system? This is targeted for someone who needs an entry-level, good in-ear monitor system. You're not planning to use a ton of wireless all at once on stage. If you're having a 7-piece band and everyone needs to have a stereo in-ear monitor system, that's where you're going to want to start looking at upgrading. I hope I've stressed this, and it feels like I've stressed this almost a little too much, but I see this mistake happening all the time, so I definitely want to make sure that I get this out. This is a great entry-level in-ear monitor system. Is it right for me? Probably not. I'm a full-time musician. We use a lot of wireless in almost all the bands that I play with, and I travel a decent amount. The other thing is that I made the mistake of choosing the wrong band. I just released a video going over what are bands and how to check to see which one you should get in your area. And like I said, I made the mistake of getting the wrong band for my area. Could I keep using this system? Yeah. Like I said, it's worked really well at the majority of the shows and rehearsals that I used it at. However, I do actually think it could go to a better home. And that's why I'm actually going to give this away to one of my subscribers. I try to do as many giveaways as I can on this channel. I'm truly grateful for the growth of this channel. It just recently hit 80,000 subscribers. Try to give back to you guys as often as possible. I'd like for this to go to a good home. So in order to win, two things is one, you have to be a subscriber. So if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. And second, you have to leave a comment down below and you have to use the magic phrase. You can say whatever you want down below in the comment section, just as long as at some point you say the magic phrase, which is sleep token. It used to be random food words. Now I'm just talking about random bands that I love. I'm filming this the day after I just saw Sleep Token at Red Rocks. It was probably the best concert I've ever seen in my life. If you haven't heard the Take Me Back to Eden album, it's my favorite album of the last 20 years, probably. It's so good. I love that album. So yeah, magic phrase is sleep token. You only have 24 hours to enter this contest, so I will announce the winner on this date right here. Please just remember, do not respond to scammers. I won't ask you for money for shipping or anything like that. Scammers like to show up sometimes when I do giveaways. If anyone messages you pretending to be me and asks you for money, that is a scam. 100%. Please do not respond to scammers. So again, many thanks to Sweetwater for sending this over to check out. If you did decide that this is something that's right for you, there are purchase links to purchase from Sweetwater down below in the description. I do highly recommend that you check out that bands video on wireless bands that I just released. And also, if you are interested in checking out the higher end model of the Sennheiser in-ear monitor system, check out my video that I did on the EW IEM system. You can check out both those videos by clicking the links on your screen now. Thank you guys again for watching. Again, many thanks to Sweetwater for sending this over. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at ScottULMusic. Thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.